Happy anniversary.
And this is our 1-year anniversary episode. All right, welcome back to the latest episode of Game Day Glare. I'm Lance. I'm with my boy E. This is the podcast for sports videographers. And this is our 1-year anniversary episode. So we did this.
Anniversary.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. 52 weeks. We did this every week. It wasn't always easy, hey? With organizing with guests, organizing with E's shoots, my shoots, families, wives, girlfriends, all that stuff, free time. But somehow every week we made the time, we found the time to get together and talk. And hopefully we helped you sports videographers out there. So I'll let you say a little something, E, about your 1-year journey of being not only a successful YouTuber, but a up-and-coming podcaster.
Yeah, it's been rough. Not gonna lie. No, just kidding. No, it's been fun. It's been like I've mentioned this before. Every time we do those types of episodes, like you've taught me a lot about consistency and keep being consistent with our filming schedule, our posting schedule, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's good. It's I can't believe it's been a year, to be honest. It just feels more like a 3-4 months sort of thing. And when I look at the numbers, realize that like it's our 53rd episode. Yeah, that makes sense. It's been a year once a week. It is mind blowing that we've done so many of them. But I'm happy. It was fun. Well, still is.
I really like the fact of creating content on a weekly basis. Now, it's not always easy. You and I, we usually block a time slot every week, and life gets in the way. And you and I, we juggle and we keep each other accountable. So that's very, very helpful. But when I look back on the year and I see, we posted, say, 300 videos this year with reels and long form format with this podcast on 3 platforms, YouTube, Apple, Spotify. I mean, we could add more platforms, but for us, that's what we really want to focus on. But I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the amount of content that we put in. I feel like there is value in all the content that we do put out. Obviously, we always want more listeners. We always want to get more reach, but it's all part of the process of growing. And for me, honestly, I feel like I have grown a lot by doing this. It really put me out there. Like, you were already on YouTube. I was never really out there yet. So like I was behind a camera all the time and not really in front of one. So it was really, really scary. And I still cringe to this day when I post our social clips and I'm in them. Sometimes I'm always like, oh man, I don't like the way I look at this one, or I don't like the way I sound in this one. But then I realized, like, just post. Who cares?
But do you feel more comfortable talking, like being filmed now that you did like a year ago?
I'm definitely more comfortable, but on like you and I, when we do these, it's just you and I. So I'm just talking to you. And if I really, really messed up, I have the power of editing that, and no one sees when we mess up. But pretty much our show is how we record it. We take out a little ums and little things, or you get phone calls sometimes during our podcast. Those are the only kind of things we edit. There you go. Those are the only things we really edit. Everything else is pretty raw. So I do definitely feel more comfortable in front of the camera, but I also realize the context of it. Like, when I'm doing this, I'm talking to you, E, and I'm trying to help someone else out there. So if for some reason my message isn't the right one for somebody, then they just won't tune in, and I'm okay with that. So I kind of like to block out the noise and do this for us. What about you? Like, this is a lot more content than you were already posting almost weekly on YouTube. Now this is a lot more on your plate too by doing this podcast. How's it been on you for the last year?
Yeah, well, definitely. Yeah, it is because the episodes go for about an hour. But we chat a bit before, a bit after. Got to prepare my setup stuff. So it is a few hours every week that I have to make sure I have the time to work on. But but it, like I said, it helped me with the consistency, but also helped me, I think, with my presence on camera where, um, usually when I make my YouTube videos, I have like a rough script of what I'm gonna say, so it is kind of prepared. I know exactly what I'm gonna say, so it avoids, me rambling too much or hesitating or having to find the best way to say something. Like I figure these things out in advance, so I don't have to worry about it while I'm filming. Just because I'm trying to make the filming process as smooth as easy as possible. So by just talking without really like, of course, I know what we're gonna talk about. We have like bullet points, but really the conversation is just like, I'm just coming up with things as we discuss them and things. So it sort of helped me being able to talk, think on my feet basically and just sort of talk about things like that and then doing it in English as well. So it's all these things. It's very, I think I'm better at it than I was a year ago, but I still, use a lot of words like,
But what some listeners might not realize is like when I first met you, yes, you are bilingual, but your first language is French. And your English has come a long, long way. Like, when we used to share an office together, you had when you spoke English, you had a, like, a French accent, a more prominent one. And now, not everyone even knows that you are French. I know maybe it's because 'cause you're fighting your French/Australian accent that makes you sound so good on the podcast, but your English is really, really good, and, it's not easy because I couldn't imagine having to do this podcast in French. So, because the way my brain works is like, I think of a sentence in English, then I translate it in French, and then I say it. So I don't know how you are, but that takes extra time, and it's hard, especially when you're on the spot and you're recording. That red light's on. It's a little bit of added pressure. So I think you're doing a great job, and I'm happy that you are doing this podcast with me in English because it would be a lot harder for me. So I prefer it to be harder for you, buddy.
yeah, no, but that's something I figured out. Yeah, when I moved to Australia, it's like you can't think in French and then speak in English. You have to just think in English because otherwise, yeah, you're overcomplicating things and it slows down the process and just so yeah, you just yeah, it's a mess. So you just have to keep it in one language, and but yeah, it's funny because I've never had a strong like I'm sure for Canadians, they'll pick up on my French Canadian accent right away because they know that accent, so they'll notice it. But I don't have even back then because when I was a very young kid, I was like the next door neighbor who would babysit me a lot. They were yeah, they spoke English, so and I was watching TV in English and all that sort of stuff. So my accent wasn't really an issue. So when I started speaking English better, people just didn't realize that French was my first language, and that was kind of scary to me because it felt like they just thought I was slow because they must have thought, if I speak slower than everyone else and I'm hesitating a lot and I'm doing hums and I don't know how to say something, I can't get it out. I'm thinking they must think I'm so dumb or that I have like I'm mentally challenged or something, and I'm just try to get it out as fast as possible. But yeah, working on it, like I said.
Well, living in Quebec, right? It's so important to have both languages. And, when I was younger, I spoke a lot more French than I do now, and I feel like I kinda lost that French, and I love how French people always kind of, hint to me that I've lost my French, and that's when I start talking to them in French, and then they just switch to English because they're like, "No, no, this guy's struggling. Let's just help him out."
Yeah.
It's like their polite way of saying, "We got you, buddy. We got you."
But that's very that's very classic sort of French Canadian thing where like we want English people to speak French, but as soon as they do, we talk to them in English. Like, yeah, don't worry, it's just it's not that. we
It's
don't
the
really,
polite
that's
Canadians in us.
yeah, but it's weird. Like I had a friend who was like he was from Manitoba, I think, like from Winnipeg or like suburban somewhere around there, and he came from like a French community, and he came here to go to school, and because he had like that thick sort of accent, everybody would speak to him in English. And he was like, dude, like my first language is French. Like he was so insulted that everybody would always talk to him in English. I was like, hey, I can speak French just as well as you do. I just have a weird accent. But anyway, enough about Canadian
That-
politics
That's
for
it.
today.
So let's take a little stroll down memory lane in our 1 year of being podcasters, and let's all start with how it started. And that was you came back from Australia because you missed me, and I really appreciate that. Because for years we were just like Facebook friends for a while, and we just messaged randomly and check out people's videos and that. But then when you reached out and said you were coming home, we started talking more. And when we did share an office, we always talked about maybe doing our own personal projects. And you had started this YouTube channel, and honestly, it really inspired me because you did a great job. Well, you're still doing a great job on YouTube. Um, but it always made me regret not putting myself out there because I'm like, I know way more than E. So if he could do this, I could definitely do this.
It's
No,
true.
I'm just kidding. When I saw your YouTube, it really inspired me. And I thought, I don't want to do what E's doing because you have your own thing. And I was looking for something different. And I thought maybe helping people and talking on our podcast where, your videos, you try to get the biggest bang for your buck where you're doing like a 10-minute video, sometimes a 15-minute video max, where this we can really deep dive into stuff, or we could cover multiple subjects within our podcast. So that was really the idea. And it was to help people, to maybe share our knowledge and inspire younger versions of ourselves, because it wasn't always easy being a sports videographer and working in sports, because no one really talked about what it was really like. And there wasn't really many people you can go and get advice from. When we started, there was no YouTube, there was no podcast. Nowadays, everybody's out there trying to learn. So this was our way of trying to give back and teach. At least that's what I saw. How did you see it when I contacted you and was like, please be on a podcast with me, and please bring all your Beyond the Game followers with you, please.
I was like, new phone, who this?
That's it. That's it.
No, but yeah, no, it was interesting to me because I wasn't doing any audio, so obviously that's something that I thought about before we discussed it, but I never really know what the format would look like. Would it be just me talking, for half an hour by myself to a camera? Would it be like interviews? But I thought like interviews can be hard to manage in terms of like having a weekly show. It's a lot of work to schedule all these interviews and make it work and stuff. So it's like, oh, do I really want to go in that direction? And do I really want to be talking to myself for half an hour to an hour or something like that? So like I knew I wanted to do something like a podcast, but I didn't really quite figure out a way that I thought could work for me. So when you mentioned it, and I thought, oh yeah, that's sort of the best of both worlds, where I don't have to talk to myself, but at the same time, it's going to be easy to do it every week. Like it's not like we have to organize, like we do organize some interviews, but we don't have to do one every week. So there's, yeah, like I said, best of both worlds. So it's perfect. And it was someone that I knew, and I knew it was going to be easy to work together and stuff. And we did have like a practice run to make sure, and it went well. I think that practice run ended up being our first episode, if I'm not
Yeah, we
mistaken.
weren't planning on posting it. But then you kind of forced me.
Or did
Do you remember?
I?
So
Is that the time the one time I punched you in the face? Is that
no,
what?
we did a practice run, and then we filmed the second show. And I was hesitant to post because I was a little gun shy, and I was away on a shoot. Now we edited it, remember, and we looked it over, and we just wanted to see like how we were going to build it out. And I had done a shoot. I traveled to Utah, and then I traveled to Florida, and I was in Florida with my grandparents. And Eve was like, "So today's the day you're posting it," and I was like, "Oh no." And I remember sitting at my grandparents' kitchen table and going live. Well, first of all, I had to learn out what SSR files were and figure out, like, log on and get a Spotify account and make sure my Apple was up to date, pay this, pay that. And then I pressed it and went live. And then I was just like, oh my God, what did I do? And honestly, right away, we got some good reactions. And I was kind of like, okay, I'm overthinking this. And from that moment on, I wasn't afraid to record. I'll admit there are times where we joke around, and our pre 30-minute talk before we start recording, I'm always like, hey, who's gonna start it? That's the only thing that scares me is like the introduction, because I'm always afraid I'm going to forget like the topic, or I'm going to say like, call this, instead of game day glare, I'm going to call it beyond the game or something, you know. That's the kind of stuff that goes through my mind. But once we get through that first introduction, I'm not worried anymore. I'm like, I'll just, edit it or leave it out if I screw up. But anyway, going live that time where you kind of were like, okay, it's time. And I needed that push, because you were kind of getting antsy. I think, we were about to record our third episode and we still never posted one. You're like, don't worry about it. Just go, and
Yeah.
whoever
'Cause I
sees it,
think that
sees it.
day, I must have had a conversation with someone that like was asking, because I was mentioning, yeah, doing me and Lance doing this podcast, and it's like, oh, where is it on? Can we see it? It's like, oh no, it's not on yet. Like after saying this for like 3 weeks, yeah, I'm working on this podcast. Well, I was saying 3 weeks, 3 recordings, so it's probably over more than 3 weeks because we weren't posting. So it's not like we had the. So after saying that for like over a month of talking about this podcast that doesn't exist, I was like, yeah, we've been recording all these episodes. We should probably start posting them. But
It
yeah,
was nice to have all those episodes in the bank. Okay, once we started using
yeah, that's true.
them, it gave us a little bit of a leeway.
Got us through Christmas, basically.
Yeah. So, actually, what were the challenges you found in starting a podcast with last year, or if there were any?
Well, I guess it goes back to like the things that I mentioned earlier, just like making sure that I make the time to be able to be consistent. But and other than that, like just from a personal point of view, I would love for my setup to be like a permanent thing that I can just flick on and everything's ready to go. But because I film my YouTube videos in the same room in a different way, I'm always like going back and forth between the two. Um, a bit easier with this, because with these mics, like I don't worry as much about the echo in the room and things like that. But I still try to remember in the first probably half of the year, if not more, like I was actually sitting the other way, and I would have the lights that I would set up in the background and all that sort of thing. And I was like, you know what? Like most people watch this in vertical form anyway. We don't see most of it. So it's like just gonna keep. Well, actually, I think the background anyway is more dynamic the way it is now. But I'm never happy about my backgrounds anyway. So it's one of the reasons why filming is like the pain points of like doing the recording for me is not necessarily talking to the camera. It's setting out the shot and making sure that it looks as good as it can. That's usually when I always second guess every decision or make too many adjustments, overthink it or whatever. But so yeah, we're working on the setup, working on consistency, probably the two things that were the hardest for me. And also, like I said, like making sure that I can have a 1 hour conversation in English without rambling too much and without hesitating too much and without looking for trying to find a way to say what I want to say in a concise sort of form. That makes sense. Which is exactly not what I just did.
So my pain points are a little bit different. So I do have a permanent setup, and I have a permanent setup because of one reason, and I'll share the secret now. I have a Godox 60 SL light, and I can't get the softbox off of it. The spring is broken in the softbox. So I don't bring it on shoots and that. I'll use another light kit because it's awkward. So that just stays in the corner of my office. So when we go to do a podcast, I just flip it on. Now I have a little light up here. That one, sometimes I'll bring on shoots, sometimes I don't. So that's the only light that maybe I might have to move, but I have a permanent bar there attached to my desk. So my setup is very, very simple. My biggest concern is when these batteries die. And I don't understand. Sometimes I'll turn them on and it says we have 6 hours on 15%, and all of a sudden, I don't know, it's just gone. So maybe I'm not charging it properly. Maybe they're a little bit faulty. But there's always one. It's usually the blue one that goes off first. But anyway, that's one of my pain points. The other thing is sometimes coming up with subjects. It's not always easy. And the reason why it's not easy, there's so many things we could talk about, right? But we always try to talk about something different. And we try and pick the subject that we can go a full episode with. And we do struggle. I do struggle with that because E always has this point, and it's a good point. He's like, we don't have to talk for an hour. We could talk for 35 minutes. We could talk for 45 minutes. And we do try to do that, but somehow we ramble on and it does get a little bit longer. So, cutting down on maybe the podcasts so they're a little bit shorter, so they're easier to listen to, and always come up with fresh new topics is always a challenge. But it's a challenge that I do like because it makes me a little bit sharper too. It makes me check out like, hey, what's going on in the industry, or we get to talk about when we have overrated, underrated. When we ask our viewers for questions and we kind of pile it together a list and we get to go through that kind of stuff. It's fun. It is fun, but I do struggle with it, but I do enjoy the challenge. So those are my only pain points. And except for the obvious one, was the first pain point was being on camera and pressing record. That was the first pain point, but I'm think I'm okay now after 52 podcasts. My friends do make fun of me though. So I will my close friends, like it's like they don't understand because they're not really tech savvy or into videography like some of them. So they have no idea what my podcast is about. And they're always like, oh, they think this is my full-time job now. So sometimes I lie to them. And I just act like, yeah, we make a lot of money doing this. But if they ever listen to this podcast, they would know, no, we don't.
So, is there something that you wish you would have known sooner or realized sooner, or maybe something you would have done differently?
I definitely would have started this earlier. Um, I mean, listen, we use Riverside. It makes it very, very easy for you and I. We could take the time to go and see each other, but it's just more convenient to both flip on our computers, put on our cameras, talk from different places. It's all live anyway. So that makes it so easy. So I do wish that I would have just started this earlier because we're growing, but it takes time. So yes, 1 year of podcasts. By next year, I want to be, double as good as maybe double of the amount of subscribers, listeners, followers, all that, because obviously you want more reach. Um, and I really enjoy this. I really enjoy talking to you. I really enjoy talking about these subjects. I do kind of enjoy talking to the camera now. So I was like, why did I wait so long to just put myself out there? I mean, obviously, working in pro sports, we have lots and lots of stories, especially like E and I have been doing this for a long time. The only thing is we can't say all the stories on our podcast, right? Just because, what happens in a locker room happens in a locker room, especially still work for a team. So, there's some not team secrets, but there's just some stuff that you don't talk about. So that part is challenging. But there's so many fun things that happen when we have this podcast, like people that we meet. Like, so I'll bring guests on, you bring guests on, networking. This has helped network strangers that we don't know reach out and ask us questions on our Instagram, on our YouTube pages. And suddenly those strangers aren't strangers anymore because you kind of talk to them or you follow them back or you happen to run in them to events and that. So I do wish I started all this earlier because it's helped me network. It's helped me get clients. It's helped me grow. And I feel like all those things are so important when you're in a creative field like sports videography.
No, it's a good point. I think for me, like the only thing in retrospect that I feel like it goes back to what you were saying, what I always want to do, like shorter episodes. It's more in the sense that like there's a lot of episodes, especially earlier on, that we were so concerned about giving value that the topic was like a very basically we could have made like 5 or 6 episodes with those episodes in terms of topics. So now that after a year, we have to think a bit longer to find like ideas that are going to be different and stuff. It's like, oh, if we would have broken down those episodes and well, like we would have more options at this point. But other than that, I don't know. I think it's gone pretty well in terms of the process and everything.
I'll ask you, since we've had, after 52 episodes, we've had numerous guests and that. What was your most enjoyable moment with a guest or most insightful moment with one of our guests?
Insightful. It's tricky because they all brought something at some point that I thought was interesting, fascinating. I really liked was Gavin our last one?
Yeah.
because I liked talking to Gavin simply from the fact that he's a photographer. So everything that he's bringing up is different and is I'm learning just as much as anyone else who's listening. Also, like when we talk to people who are in the US versus Canada, because they can talk about the whole college thing and all the, so it's so different from here. So it's interesting to talk to someone who's lived it like firsthand. Um, but in terms of like the one that was the most fun, I'd say probably Paul, because it was just like funny to just have a conversation with him and you together, and just yeah, it felt like just going to the bar with old friends, and you know,
Yeah, there's a lot of history there with Paul, and
yeah.
we had to edit out a lot of the stuff that Paul said too, right? That episode probably took the most amount of editing. That's why I made you edit that one, E.
What about you?
Um, so I really learned a lot from CM. Uh, he added us to his course, his After Effects course, and I'm not very good in After Effects, so I do log into the course and I do some of the actual programs in that. So I am getting better. So I liked hearing his story, and it was funny how before we even press record, him and I were talking, and he found out I used to work for the Expos. And right away, he was, talking about Dennis Martinez and how much he liked them and all that, and how he did like a documentary on him. So it was really really cool to see that, because I'm thinking like, yeah, I work for the Expos. He's not gonna have. Why is he gonna care? He's probably not even gonna know who the Expos are. He lives in Miami. So you find it's a small world. And I got to have Shafiq on the show, who I had the chance of working with, and when he started at the Canadians, I was the veteran and he was the rookie, and I used to help him, give him some tips and that. And it wasn't so much about giving him tips on creativity or editing. That was more like life tips and like, hey, you're young, don't worry about this, you have time, and little things like that. So I tried to do what I wanted someone to do to me when I was younger. So I tried to be that voice of
Sorry, I was
reason.
busy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You were busy. It's because you and I were the same age, so we were in the same amount of trouble. Um, but also from this podcast, like just at Four Nations Cup, I got to meet Juan, and already after spending an hour and a half with him on the podcast, like I already knew him. So it was kind of nice to actually, catch up with someone in person that you've already had in your podcast, and you already know that you have some stuff in common. So that was kind of a cool experience also. And we are working on other guests. We've had some requests. It's like, hey guys, you guys talk a lot about basketball and hockey. What about soccer? Now we do have someone we're in contact with from Montreal with MLS. So that is something we're working on. It's hard with schedules, schedule, my schedule, and the soccer season's already started. So we are trying to organize that. Trying to branch out to a couple other contacts who are maybe a little bit different, because you know we do know people in the industry, but the thing is, a lot of people that we know in the industry have similar job titles. So we try to mix it up. I mean, it's no problem having someone on. We can have 10 videographers in a row. It doesn't matter, but we do try to mix it up. And also it's really tricky with everyone's schedule, especially during season time. But that is always something we're working on, and always trying to get new and fresh guests. And we're hoping that these guests add value too to the show and to our listeners.
Good point. So how do you see like obviously we've evolved, like we've been talking about so far, about like the podcast evolved, but also sports videography as a whole has evolved in the last year. So what would you say is the biggest the biggest change over the last year for sports videographers, whether it's regarding equipment or the industry? Like, I don't know, like what's your take on the last year of sports videography?
I feel like videography in a whole is cool now because of like Instagram and TikTok and that. When we started our careers and you told people you did videos for a living, no one really knew what that meant or what it was, because it wasn't like, not everyone needed video. Nowadays, everybody needs video, especially sports teams. Every sports teams needs video. So I feel like it's a growing industry. And like I was telling you off camera, like I just worked with a football player who has a nil deal, and I didn't realize the amount of content that they're gonna have to put out this year. So there are more and more opportunities for sports videographers, and it's only gonna get more competitive, and it's only gonna help people put out better videos. So I feel like the sky's the limit. Now I know there's AI and there's all this other stuff going on in the world, but I really feel if you can use the new tools that are provided, like AI and that, it can even help you save more time. So the trick is to learn creative ways on how to use those tools properly and how to save yourself a little bit of extra work. And I feel like in the last year too, there's been some really cool videos created. Like I'm gonna go back. I've mentioned this a ton of times. One of my favorite ones is the one the Boston Celtics did from up high, where they mask out everybody in that. It's not really a new technique. It was just done in a different way, and it was something fresh. And I feel like people are constantly pushing each other to be better and to be more creative. So I can only see that as a positive and see as for the industry as a whole getting stronger and stronger. Now, me personally, when I looked at that, I'm like, "Oh my god, that took a lot of work." Because I understand right away how much masking and tracking and all that goes into it. That was my first thought. But everybody else is like, "Wow, that's cool." But I, as a video editor of 20 with 20 plus years experience, I'm like, "Oh my god, how long did that take?"
Yeah, that's the thing I think for me, like, that at this point in my career, like, that I need to work on is not get lazy, and because I see, like, what all these kids are doing, and like you said, you think about it thinking, "Man, how much time did he spend on an Instagram video that is not making him any money?" And he's just made that for the fun of it and just, yeah, obviously to impress and to use for his portfolio and things like that. Well, I'm not talking about the Boston Celtics specifically, though, but I'm talking about, like, yeah, all these young kids who put, like, content on social media, and I'm thinking, like, wow, like, in my life right now, like, the idea of spending that much time on just an Instagram video on my personal account just for the fun of it, like, I wouldn't have like, I wouldn't think about doing that, so, like, I but then I remind myself, though, like, that's part of how you get better and how you work on being creative in different ways and finding new ways to do things. And so yes, I'm definitely trying to motivate myself to, like, force myself to do things, even if it's not benefiting me in terms of money or exposure or whatever. Just going the extra, putting on the extra work, the extra time, just so that I keep improving and I keep getting better and I keep being up to certain standards that are now expected in sports videography. Gear wise, did you see actually did you see that thing that came out yesterday, I think? I don't know if it's on sale now, but like Sony released, like, there was like a teaser of this new, well, it didn't say what it was, but it looked like a camera because all you could see was like a full frame, and you could just see sort of around it, and it was like gray, similar to the body of like an FX3 or something, a cinema camera anyway. So like an FX series. So it was like, ooh, what is it? And people were excited. FX3 Mark II. I thought about you. I was like, ooh, Lance is about to buy a new
No,
camera.
I didn't see it because yesterday I was on a double shoot, okay? Some of us
Ah,
work
that's
for a
true.
living, okay? But no, I did not see it. But gear-wise, I mean, Sony is coming out with new cameras this year. Uh, A7 V is supposed to eventually drop. They keep pushing it. FX3 Mark II, that's on the list too. I think the cameras are just getting better and better, and um, I'm excited to see what the future has for them. I don't feel like upgrading is always necessary. If you have a good camera that shoots, 4K or shoots what you don't need to always jump and get the newest one. And if you do buy a camera, look to future proof it. Like, hey, I'm buying this camera, but the technology in it is going to be good enough for me for the next 3-4 years, because they're expensive, man, and they're only getting more and more expensive. Um, but I like all the little gadgets that are coming out with, like my DJI Pocket 3. I'm gonna pump the tires on it a bit. I pulled that out the other last week. Instead of bringing my gimbal, I left my gimbal at home. I pulled out this. I had this planned shot. The the kid that I was working with, the hockey player I was working with, did not listen at all to the planned shot, and he kind of like ran through it, and I kind of just chased him with it, and the shot came out perfect. And I was so happy because I thought I ruined the shot. I'm like, oh, well, I'm not going to use this shot. It's going to be crap. But that little camera surprised me. I shot D-Log with it. I was able to color correct it properly. I even threw an ND filter. And then as I was running inside, I had to pull the magnet ND filter off while I was still recording. So I wasn't really sure. I pressed auto, white balance, and everything worked out. So I'm so impressed with that little camera that I know we have been talking about RS3s, RS4s, and all that. But when I go light and I'm traveling, I'm bringing that Pocket 3 instead of my gimbal every time because it does do the job for the small tracking shots I do need. Now, if I need if I'm doing a real estate project or something big where I really want that shallow depth, I really want complete control, then I will use my regular gimbal. But for something fast that I only use for maybe a 4-second shot anyway, that little Pocket 3 was amazing. And they're coming out with a new one. They're coming out with a Pocket 4. And I feel like all these companies, GoPro, DJI, they're pushing each other, and action cams are pushing each other. Like even you just did a Mic Series E on YouTube. All these companies are coming out with great, great products that are smaller and better. So as videographers, we're going to have more and more choices and more affordable choices to get new gear in smaller accessories. Cameras, no, cameras for some reason they're just getting more and more expensive. But for the smaller accessories, it's definitely helping. What trends do you see in equipment?
Well, yeah, like you said, I think like the smaller accessories are gonna be more and more useful and give us like the smaller cameras, the action cameras and stuff are giving us better and better quality. But um, in terms of the main ones, I think it's heading towards 8K. It's heading towards like having well, because there's like better autofocus, better this, better that. Like often it serves a purpose in a specific scenario, like the ability to like even there's a like there's a camera like just an obscure camera brand I've never heard of that does like live streaming sort of the cameras that you can either remote control or they can track someone. And it's like, yeah, it's great. Tracking someone sounds great, but it only works if there's only one person in the shot. So it's one thing to have amazing autofocus, but if you've got 6 people in your shot, it doesn't really make it any difference. So yeah. So there's always going to be improvement in a lot of things. Is it going to automatically translate into this camera is better for sport than the previous version? Not necessarily. So some things yes, some things no. So like for example, shooting in 8K can be very useful if your computer can manage it, but having the latest autofocus technology is not going to be the dream you probably think it is. Like it's not going to go night and day. But in saying that, if you're starting from like a Canon R100 with like the kit lens, then yes, going with something that has the latest like autofocus, and a nice lens, that's going to be very different from what you're working with right now. So just yeah, it depends. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the future. And by the way, that new announcement from Sony was a bit of a well, not a dud, but it was just basically it wasn't a camera. It was I didn't even know. Well, I knew these things existed, but I didn't realize you could have it at that level. Like just basically for the FX9, it was something that you attach with a cable, and it's like a sensor block. So it's if the camera, because the FX9 is pretty big, so if it can't fit somewhere, you're gonna attach this extra thing that is the camera. It's just like the sensor. You put a lens on it, and then you can fit that smaller portion, for example, in the cockpit of a car. Or I think they used it. The previous version of that was used to film like Top Gun, the latest Top Gun movie, like things like that. So there'll be a cable that goes from the real camera to that little thing that's just a sensor and a lens. So that's what they released yesterday, I think. So it's just that sensor block basically that fits the FX9, because before then I think you had to buy another one that wasn't made by Sony, and now Sony has their own.
So I'm going to date ourselves here. But first of all, DJI already had a product like that. But do you remember the original cigar cams? that we used to put like on player helmets sometimes during the open practices.
Cigar cams.
So it was like this long. It was like a tube, and we attached it to the helmet. It was basically a camera. It was like looked like a cigar, and then it went in a wire, and we had a battery pack on it that recorded the camera. Yeah, we used to use that back in the day, and now they're bringing it back basically because they're like, okay, how do we get all this great technology into a portable situation? Huh. So you teased me with an FX3 Mark II for that. I'm a little disappointed because I was like, oh, sweet. After this podcast, I'm going to be checking to see if the FX3 2 is coming out, you know?
Nah, not yet. No, no, no. Because look in the teaser, it looked like the front of an FX series camera. So I was
Yeah,
like,
that
ooh,
gray.
new camera. Yeah. But yeah, it was just the front, not the back.
So I'll ask you a question. How has your work changed over the last year since we started this podcast, and since you've been doing a lot of YouTube videos about saying how you want to improve, and you're testing more stuff, and you're being more consistent. So how has your work changed?
Well, in the last, I don't know if it's the whole year, but the last few months, I was actually thinking about this yesterday. I think I've made a lot of videos reviewing equipment and talking more about filming and either features or gear. It's been a lot around that more than in the past, probably since I started, built a relationship with Sony and Ulenzi and all these new brands that sort of yeah that showed me a lot of love basically. And then just recently, like DJI is also another one that I've been working with a couple times now, and Holy Land was willing to send me some mics as well. So yes, I've been doing a lot of that, and I'm thinking I should probably start doing a bit more like editing content as well, because to my most popular videos are actually more like editing related. Like it's like tips to edit like hype reels, those sort of thing. That's usually my if you go like see my top three. Well, I have some documentaries that are in the top three, but then after that, like if you look at the sports videography, it's usually that it's more towards editing. So and I realized yesterday that I hadn't done that in a while, so I should probably get back to that and give the people what they want. Start, stop forcing Sony cameras down their throats. Not that I'm forcing anyone to buy anything, but yeah, I think I want to diversify my content a little bit more.
Okay.
And you, when's that YouTube channel coming out?
Yeah, I knew you were gonna ask that. Honestly, I'm just gonna give you some props right here that running a podcast and having a YouTube channel and a company at the same time is not always as feasible as you make it sound. I am still working on it. It is coming. My release date was always after our year anniversary of the podcast, so now I have no excuses because that year anniversary is today. So that is coming. My YouTube channel. I'm ironing out a couple things that I'm working on, um, but I am a little gun shy to just publish it. But I'm just going to. I have no choice, and I know once I rip off that band-aid, I'll be fine, and I'll be good to go. Also for my own personal editing, and that this year has been really cool because I do share some of our when we talk about business or content packages and stuff, that I'll share that on LinkedIn, and it has helped me get some new clients. And it has been a busy year because I'm in the third year of working for myself after having a nice cushy 9 to 5 job for all these years. So selling myself was hard, and I knew how to edit videos, I knew how to come up with the ideas, I knew how to film everything, but no one ever told me how to sell my services. And that's something that I'm still learning to this day, but I'm getting better at it. And I'm not afraid when people say no. I would rather someone say no that doesn't see the value in the content I offer or the video package that I offer than them say yes and not really go through with it. So it's helped me, weed out the good clients from the bad clients. And we've said before on the show, like, don't be afraid to lose something that you never really had anyway. So if I have a meeting with a big potential client, even though it could be a big deal and they say no, it doesn't really change much. There's always someone else I can go out there and talk to. And just because they said no right now doesn't mean they might not, they might say yes in the future. So I'm really into showing people the value of video, and everybody does need it. All these companies, all these corporations, they need it. It's just they don't always see the value in it, and they don't always have the funds or time to be able to produce these videos with me. So yeah, it's something I'm constantly learning and constantly growing, and it's been a really busy year, but it's been fun. It's been fun, and I think the thing I'll wrap it up in one word: time management. I have learned the most about time management this year because there's days, man, where it's crazy, and then there's days where it's quiet. So I kind of have to learn how to spread that out and take the good with the bad, and make my whole week. There's times where like I'm swamped and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just go upstairs and grab a coffee, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, what's that on Sports Center? And then I catch myself slacking off for an hour. So now I block time in my schedule. I block time and I say, okay, from I don't know, 9 to 10, you're working on this. From 10 to 11, you have a call. From 12 to 1 is lunch. And then 3 to 5, you're finishing this project. And doing that has really, really helped me tremendously. Finish projects, catch up with my clients, get new leads. And it's really all coming together, because in the past, I would get clients and I'd be so focused on those clients, I wouldn't go out and get new leads. And then what happens when you finish with those clients, you sit there and you have no work coming in. So now I put in my schedule, my weekly schedule, where to nurture those leads or get those leads, and then where to work on the other clients' projects. So time management is my word of the year, or last year.
Yeah. So what about next year? Now that like, what's what are we wishing ourselves for the next 12 months? Or is it going to be? Is there going to be any changes or anything, any goals that we are trying to reach?
Well, I
I'm
think,
asking that as if I'm not part of the team.
yeah.
You're in charge, so like, you tell me. Do we have
I think the
goals?
first goal is, and it's not even about me, I think you need to get that plaque this year.
Well, that's not a game day glare. Go.
You're close to 100K subscribers on Beyond the Game, which is going to be a big accomplishment. So I think by pushing this podcast and that, and pushing people towards Beyond the Game, I would really like to see you get that 100K plaque, because I'm going to feel bad when I start a YouTube channel and I get it first. So I figure, like, I'm going to push people now, push them towards your channel now before I launch mine. So you stand a chance. Okay. That's the first thing that's happening this year.
That's strong words from someone who hasn't started yet.
It's so easy to talk tough, eh? Day one.
Yeah, exactly.
The second thing is, listen, game day glare is here to stay. The first year has only, we only cracked the surface. There's so many other things we could talk about. There's so many other guests that we can have in our community. And honestly, to our listeners, reach out. You might have a story that we want to share or want to hear. So why not reach out, talk to us, tell us, what you're doing, what you're working on, and maybe we can have you on the podcast. I would really like to open it up where we can have some more guests and more listeners on. And I'm always looking for new ways to add new content and different ideas to the show. So I feel like year one was a good learning curve, but year two is going to be even better and stronger.
Definitely agree. I think even like, if there is enough, we'd have to find the right timing. But like, if there is enough demand, let's say, for example, to do like a live show where people could ask questions and stuff, like, this could be something that we try to do next year. Like, where, because there's two of us. Like, my concern with doing a live video on YouTube, like, I've done it once, but like, it's very stressful because you're talking and you're reading the questions, and you're making sure that from a technology perspective, everything's going right, like audio is going through, everything's going fine. So being two of us, we can manage a bit better with all these different things. So who knows if there's demand. So all that to say that, like, if that's something that you guys are into, please let us know, because yeah, that could be something we could look at doing. Not every week, but
No, not everybody.
once in a while.
No, but even you and I have spoke in the past about even starting a private group where we can have people and work with them and help them get their sports videography up to par. Whether it's like, we can put them in contacts, maybe help them get credentials, maybe help with their edits or their reviews, their technical questions, stuff like that. So if people are interested in that, reach out and we can start that too. The whole thing is just tell us what you guys are looking for. And it's a lot easier for us because we do have a lot of knowledge and there's a lot of value in all our many years of experience in this industry. But it's always nice to hear what people are actually looking for, because sometimes we think our problems working in broadcast or working on YouTube are not the same problems that you're having working at your university or getting your foot in that door with that first baseball team, for example. Everybody has different problems. So it's nice to kind of hear from our listeners and hear what we can help with.
Amen.
Yeah. But I do want to take a moment to thank all our listeners who have reached out throughout the year. There's been a lot of questions. Hopefully we've answered as many as we can. Sometimes, they do fall through the cracks. Like I didn't even realize that Spotify, you can leave comments. So when I upload videos, I see them later on. So I do apologize for sometimes getting late to the Spotify listeners, a little late. E is pretty good on YouTube. E usually answers on YouTube pretty fast. I've noticed. I go to answer and I'm like,
I get
damn it.
the notification. That's why.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, damn it, he already answered. Instagram, I try and get to you guys whenever I can. But it has opened up many doors. And you know what? We love meeting new people. We love talking to people in the industry. So just keep on reaching out, and you helped us with 3 episodes and you didn't even realize, just because we stockpiled all your questions. And we answered those on 3 episodes. So that was very, very helpful. It saved me from looking for new topics. I was like, hey, let's just talk. Actually, it was more E's idea, but hey, let's just, with the overrated, underrated, it was all questions that we had piled up. So that was very, very helpful. But this show is really for you guys, the listeners, you guys, the younger versions of ourselves who are trying to be sports videographers or work in pro sports. I wish I had this when I was younger. So I'm hoping that for you guys out there, this is what you are looking for.
Yeah.
You're a man of few words today. You're like, you know what? It's my 1-year anniversary. I'm taking it easy. Lance, you talk.
Yeah, I've been drinking champagne all morning. That's why.
That's it. But do you have anything to add that you would like to do in this 1 year, or anything you want to reflect?
No, I think like you, I just want to thank everyone for listening and still being here 1 year later. And yeah, hopefully we can come up with new topics that are still sort of interest and start new conversations about sports videography that we haven't had before. And that might be helpful to you guys in a different way. Because that's always sort of my biggest worry, I guess, is to making sure that we're coming up with new stuff and we're just not repeating ourselves like over and over. So yeah, hopefully that's how you see it and you enjoy it, and that's why you're still here. So I'm very thankful for that, and hopefully we keep going next year and you'll still be there when we do the same type of show in 12 months from now.
Well, I guess that's it for the 1-year anniversary show of Game Day Glare. Thank you to all our listeners, and thank you, E, for being part of this show too.
Thank you too. See you next week.
See ya.
54.